in the world of college athletics. And we will give you some sound and hear from some folks and all that good stuff through the show today. And we said that we talked about this yesterday. And all these things are great and wonderful as long as you don't go too far. But make no mistake, every decision made is just about money. Every decision. And I love the people deeply who will hold up signs at games. I'll see these pictures and images every now and then of people who are like, you know, get rid of NIL. NCAA, get rid of NIL. NCAA, stop this transfer anywhere you want to. Well, they can't. They can't do it. They can't stop it. It's the NIL is now a thing because not letting adults make money is against antitrust laws. So that's over. And I do. I love the old school passion of I want things back the way they used to be. But it's never going back. It's not. When Congress is not going to, in my opinion, save the NCAA from themselves. They're just not. If they were going to, they'd have done it by now. They're not going to do what we had the thing yesterday in the greatest day of the history of the world back in, 1922 or 1923. The U.S. government deemed baseball more entertainment and sport than a business. So they basically said baseball does not have to adhere to antitrust laws. And that's the only sport in this country, professional sport, that has that. But the NCAA is not going to get it. There's not, in my opinion. Could it happen? I mean, sure. Anything's possible, but I just don't think there's an appetite in Congress to make that an important part of what they're doing when it comes to laws and things of that nature and setting policies. And I don't want them to. I don't. Look, I love sports, but deal with what really matters. The things that affect our lives as citizens of the United States. But barring that miracle from Congress to tell the NCAA that they do not have to follow antitrust laws, which they haven't anyway for a long time until recently, the NIL is here to stay. It's not going to change. And you just have to, I'm not telling you to like it, but you just have to get used to it. And get used to the idea that revenue sharing with the players is coming. And these schools are going to have to carve out $18.5 million, really $20.5 in totality, but $18.5 toward paying these players to play for their school. So you got to find money. And that's all this is about right now is college athletics looking for dough. Lift it up there. They're shaking the couch. You ever seen the guy that shakes the couch cushions at the party looking for money? My ex, when I was a young Terry Ford, her uncle was that guy. He was married to a woman who was a secretary for a law firm. And the first year they were dating, his name was Sam. Great guy. She took Sam to the company Christmas party, the law firm Christmas party. So picture this. Don't close your eyes. You might be driving. Picture this. And he was kind of a big dude, not like gigantic, but probably like 6'2", 6'3", husky guy. Wore the chain wallet. You're at your law firm's Christmas party, and these lawyers, they're making money. They got a little air of sophistication to them. And you turn the corner into one of the sitting rooms in this lawyer's house, and you see the guy you're going out with, he's got a chair upside down, he's shaking it. And she was like, Sam, what are you doing? He's like, honey, these are lawyers. They got money all over the place. There's got to be a lot of change in this chair. Yeah. That's the NCAA. They're Sam. That's what they're doing. We're just going to keep shaking this couch. There's got to be money in this couch. We're going to keep shaking it. Sam also, one day I was walking through town on a Sunday, and I saw him. He's just walking, looking down. He goes, Sam, what are you doing? He goes, that's what I do. I do this every Sunday. I walk around looking for change. That's the NCAA, too. You might see the NCAA walking through your neighborhood looking for change. But that's the world we live in today with college athletics. So they are selling their soul, yes. And if you know this wives' tale, if you're into music, they are at the crossroads. They are Robert Johnson. Dave knows this one. Dave will shake his head. They are at the crossroads selling their soul to the network financial devil to get any money they can because they got to pay players. It's coming. So we see these things and we roll our eyes or we get frustrated or get tired of talking about it or tired of hearing it. And it's just, it's just the way it is now. It's the way it's going to be. And barring a miracle from Congress, which I don't think is happening, this is going to continue. You need to find more money. And more money. And more money. Because schools, and this is why we played the cut from Greg Sankey yesterday about, are you going to get rid of non-revenue generating sports? Because they're costing you money. And that's my concern because, again, schools and universities, look, yes, they are institutions of higher learning, and I'm not going to belittle that. But you know what they also are? Businesses. They are money-making businesses. And any business that makes a lot of money isn't going to go like this. Well, I guess we'll just make $20 million less. What the heck? No business does that. No business goes, we'll just make less. We'll make a lot less money. No, they don't. They're going to go like this. Well, we're losing $20 million that we typically put in our pocket. What can we do to get it back? And part of that could be cutting non-revenue generating sports, which I think sucks. And it would be a shame to see that happen to athletes who bust their tail just like football players and basketball players do to be great at their sport or be the best they can be at their sport. And it matters deeply to them. They put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and, pain into getting there, just like football players and basketball players. And they could lose their sports at the university. It could go to club level, whatever. But it's a business. So that's why we sit here and look at expansion with the college football playoff. Do we have play-in games? Do we have automatic qualifiers? All this is about how much can we put together in a package that we can hand to a network to where they're going to give us more money. So you can hold signs up. Again, God love you. Hold signs up yelling about what you don't like about this, and you can't stand it. You want to go back to the old days when you did all this under the table. There was a bag of money sitting on some guy's porch. But, again, this is where it's going. And so all these things, the meetings at Destin, it's kind of funny, talking to a couple people here who have been around for a long time who told me the SEC meetings in Destin was like nothing. You go there, file a story or two that nobody really cared about, and then you sit on the beach and chug Coronas. Now you have to work. I mean, look at Greg Sankey. This dude's like holding court every day. Because all this stuff matters now. You need to answer questions about the future of the college football playoff. About, we're not talking about conference expansion for a change. That'll probably happen again at some point. We talk about will the SEC and Big Ten break away and build their own super-duper gigantic, ginormous league? We're talking about the teams want to get out of the ACC. They want to make more money, and they're stuck with a grant of rights. All these things, after a while, does your head want to explode? Sure, but it's all about leveraging the most dough you can make because you need the money. And I know most folks understand it to a level, but there are people who just want to go back to the old days and say, screw this, man. I don't like any of this. You got these, and this is part of it. There are people that say this. Get these teenagers making all this money. The hell they know what to do with that kind of money. No, some do, some don't. Just like I know people my age who can't take care of money. I got a buddy of mine. I obviously won't say his name because you don't know him and don't care about his name. I got a buddy of mine who makes about $150,000 a year. He called me up the other day. Hey, man, can you spot me some money to my payday? He called me, Dave, the radio goof. That cat's popping $150 a year, and he's calling me, hey, can you spot me till payday? I go, I got $6.14 in my bank account because I just paid 65 tuitions. What do you want? But there are grown-ups who can't handle their money. So forget that 19-year-old. There's some 19-year-olds, by the way, handle money better than 50-year-olds. My daughter is so cheap, and she hoards all of her money. My daughter could run an athletic program budget. That's how she is with her money. And she's 20. Heck, I got to go to her, Dave. Hey, can you put a budget together for me, sweetheart? Help me out. But there are people who don't like this because they don't like to see, like, these young people get paid. They don't like it at all. And again, you hear well, how about they're getting a scholarship? I agree. If you have kids, you love scholarships. They're great. That means you don't pay any money as a parent for their schooling. I understand the value of a scholarship. Here's the deal, though. In the bigger picture, that scholarship's great, but when you see how much money's being generated, and then you go, well, they want more than just a scholarship. They want to be able to also generate revenue for themselves, which, any college student can do that, by the way. If you're, Dave, like when you were in school in South Carolina, doing all the illegal things you were doing, nobody was stopping you from getting a job, right?
That's correct. I worked at a gas station and convenience store. I did the front desk at Columbia Hall. I was a patrol person for the for the University of South Carolina Police. We walk around with walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm.
Go, everything's cool here, man.
Is that how you talked back then in the 70s?
Yeah.
Dude, everything's like rad here, man. We're cool.
No, I'm not in the Russ House Theater. I am walking around, man. Yeah, I really am. I'm patrolling. Sure.
I can just see you. I can see young David Ayer doing that. God. But that's the thing. They look at the scholarship differently than we do. They just do. And again, you can like it, not like it, but they like, okay, that scholarship's great. I'm going to school free, but I'm also playing sports for you. And yeah, you're giving me stuff, but I want to be able to also use my name, image, and likeness for leverage to make me some money. Now, is the thing all sideways and pay for play and this thing has gone just wackadoodle? Sure it has. Does it need to be fixed where it has some rules and regulations and processes? Yes. That's called collective bargaining. Feel free to have a shot. But it's just not changing. And the reason I guess I bring this up, I've had people in the last couple of days just tell me about how all this stinks. I don't disagree, but it's where we're at. Halftime show. We got some sound from the commish next on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford hanging out with you. David Dare is here. Thinking back on all of his jobs he had in college. Man, you had a lot of jobs, dude. Wow.
I did.
You did. Man. All right, really quick, because this is going to make me throw up. This is going to make me throw up, so I'm going to ask. That's like someone saying, hey, man, this really tastes like crap. Want a bite? What was the tuition a year at South Carolina when you... What year did you graduate?
Oh, well, I graduated in 83, but I started in 76.
So you're a doctor or a lawyer?
No, just very slow at getting a degree.
What was the tuition?
I don't know, because I went on a scholarship.
Oh, you 7 years, you never paid a dime?
Never paid a dime. But I paid for my dorm room, which was, first I lived on the Horseshoe, and then I lived at Columbia Hall, which was a nice co-ed dorm at the time. They're redoing it all now. But
what scholarship did you have for 7 years?
American Legion.
Wow. Man. Should have checked that out for
It's actually 6 years.
Okay.
You can do 6 years.
Man, I wonder if they still have those. I should have checked into those for my kids.
It's called the GI Bill.
I didn't know you were in the military, Dave.
I don't talk about anything. You're asking too many personal questions here.
Well,
Way too many questions.
Dave, I didn't know we'd go down this rabbit hole with you.
Well, we don't need to go down.
I'm fascinated by this. I never knew any of this about you till just now.
We don't need any of this rabbit hole. We'll just.
So now that wow. So you have another identity we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I have lots of ideas.
This is why I say, when you leave here, none of us want to know what you're really doing.
That's true.
This is one of the reasons now.
That's true. But I remember what the dorm cost.
How much?
Because I'd pay for that. It was $600 a semester.
So you paid like $1,200 a year for the dorm, basically.
Yep. But then the RA was from my hometown, and she had a little Carmen Ghia convertible, so we would ride back and forth.
Yeah, I'm just thinking now because, there's some of these schools that, and if anybody's kids are going to college or dealing with college stuff, you're paying between 50, 60 to 80, 90,000 a year.
Yeah, I don't think it was anywhere near
a
that
year.
much.
Oh, well, back then, I remember when I went to school, it was, it was a little bit later than you, but I wouldn't drop. I probably paid, I paid under 10 grand a semester, if I remember. Yeah. It was a trucking school. No, anyway. But I remember paying under like 10 grand. Today, what I paid for a semester, you probably pay for books.
Yeah.
It's craziness.
The most expensive thing was books. It was always like books.
That's when you got used books that were all written in, the pages were ripped up, and terrible things were inside of them.
Pages missing.
Sorry we took you down a deep rabbit hole of your life you didn't want to go down, Dave. You're free now.
Right.
You're okay.
We're good.
This is going to be a daily feature, digging into Dave's personal life. All right, so real quick, we have heard a lot from Greg Sankey about a lot of things. We're going to get back to that, obviously. He has a couple of interesting things, not as much on this topic, but just topic in general of like court storming and the ridiculousness of flipping a coin when you're trying to figure out a champion, a tiebreaker for a championship. It's just silly. Just silly. But real quick, before we jump into some Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, talking about the support of straight seeding for the college football playoff. We were yipping about, look at this NIL stuff. You don't have to like it. A lot of people don't. But it's not going anywhere. Barring some miracle in Congress, it's not going anywhere. It's here. And these athletes are going to get paid. And that's just the reality of the situation. So let's grab a call real quick, 803-404-6100. Let's get Diane, who's been waiting patiently. Diane, we appreciate your patience. You're on the game. Welcome to the halftime show. What's up?
Hey, I love love the game. Y'all are our only radio station. We get you way down here in Panopolis, Moncks Corner. Thank goodness for the app. Okay. I am an old teacher coach. Let me tell you, they have totally messed up athletics. You can't tell me the NCAA cannot go in and do a reset. On the reset, you go to college, you sign a letter, you stay there unless you want to transfer and pray to go somewhere else, but you won't be playing the next year. What they're doing, they have totally ruined who we follow, how they play, the interests, the amount of energy that is expended. We had a kid come into us, and didn't he leave and go right back to Louisville with $100,000? This is ridiculous. You can't tell me a reset can't be there, because they do it in businesses and they do it everywhere. And if you don't like it, don't go to school. Don't have that little way into the NFL. Let the NIL people furnish you something to go into the NFL if you want, or baseball. But let me tell you, it's got to stop. This has gone totally out of control. And the coaches and the teachers, no wonder so many people are retiring. They're having nervous breakdowns. But love your show and keep giving them heck over there, guys.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate you.
Secretive service.
Thanks, Diane. Man, we opened up a whole can for you. You're welcome, Dave. Anytime we can help.
Boy, oh boy.
And look, Diane speaks for a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, she does. And I think Tyler and I were talking about this yesterday. While Dave was off doing espionage, now that we know about his secret life, Tyler and I were talking about even people who support, the players compensating off their name, image, and likeness, and are very pro-player. All think this is a little crazy. We gotta get some rules and regulations and some guardrails and things of that nature, because this thing has just totally gone whacked, and it has. And this is the NCAA's fault again, because they were not proactive. They just sat back and kept trying to fight for the old system, and even up until they were finally, voted against in the Supreme Court 9-0, which that shows you how bad of a beatdown the NCAA got. They were hell-bent on, they thought they could hold on to what they've always done. So they were never proactive, and the people in the NCAA who told them this was coming, they got rid of those folks. So the NCAA brought it on themselves. But, Diane speaks, a lot of fans feel that way. They just do. And it's like all of a sudden, what you've known your whole life is totally different. And you know what? For the most part, we don't like change. We say we do, but most of the time we really don't. And when you look at where this thing has gone, from one extreme to the other, a lot of fans are just, what in the bleep is happening here? So what has to happen, and Diane brought about a hard reset. The problem with that is because then if you try to hard reset, if you're the NCAA and you try to hard reset and do what Diane said, which I understand where she's coming from, what will happen is there will be 17,000 lawyers in court representing the players saying that this hard reset was not signed off on by the players, and that what you're doing is, once again, breaking the antitrust laws. And once again, the NCAA will lose. They just will. There's one thing that will bring this back in the middle. Get your shot glass. Collective bargaining. Is it perfect? No. But that's all that can be done at this point. Now that you've gotten the courts and the legal system involved, if you're the NCAA, you just can't hard reset. A lot of folks there are people listening to heard Diana go, yeah, hard reset. I love that idea. But they just can't do it. Every time the NCAA tries to do something, they get taken to court and they get beat. And that would get beat too, because antitrust would come up and judge would go, yep, you're infringing on the rights of these the young adults to earn income So you are now breaking antitrust laws. It's just, again, it's reality. But yeah, it is insane right now. It is crazy. And yes, there has to be some kind of rules, whether it's one transfer portal, your rev share. I mean, it's kind of like a salary ceiling, so to speak, or a compensation ceiling, but it's going to get worked around with collectives and things of that nature. Still, there will be schools giving more money to players than others. It's not a level playing field. The NCAA, look, college football and college basketball will never be a level playing field. College athletics will never be a level playing field. It just won't be. But yeah, there's some mechanism there in place about how much money these programs at the top from the school can give players. Now, again, that could get challenged in court, too, as I take you down the rabbit hole of, oh, my God. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, David Ayers here, just in case you just woke up, next here on the game. Halftime show, just in case you just woke up. Maybe you missed last night. The Knicks survive against Indiana, taking out the Pacers. In a game, it looked like Indiana sleptwalk. They were like, look, we're up 3-1. We'll go into New York, and we'll play hard. We'll try. But, yeah, we just got to win one of the next three. That's a recipe for disaster. Just be honest. It is. You never want to get to that point. Yeah, he's got to win one of the last three. You want to end it. You don't want to let a team, when you got a team down, not just the Pacers, anybody, you got a team down 3-1, you want to end them. Like that great quote from that Academy Award-winning movie, Karate Kid, you want to put them in a body bag. You don't want to give them life. You want to take out Freddy Krueger. And Indiana last night, Pascal Siakam said it after the game, Knicks played harder because the Knicks were desperate. And desperation, if you play desperate and, the other team plays hard, but they're not playing as hard as you because they got 3 games, right? They've got to get one. And you go out there and play desperate and you're at home with your home crowd. That's a recipe that you can stave off elimination if the other team isn't dug in as hard as you. And look, Indiana played hard. I shouldn't have said sleepwalk, but they just didn't play with the same edge and intensity that they've played through the series. These didn't. And the Knicks came with we don't want to die tonight. We don't want our season to end. And New York won. And your thought, Pascal Siakam, speaking of Siakam, was doing his post game, and he basically, and the audio, I played the audio, but it just doesn't work. Because I listened to it like 5 times today. I'm like, oh, that's not going to be, it's not going to translate. Basically, Pascal Siakam is sitting post game, doing the presser after the loss. And there's a guy, Greg Doyle, who has been a long-time sports writer. Greg Doyle used to write for CBS Sports. He's been a columnist for a long time. He now writes for the Indianapolis Star. And so Siakam was saying New York just played harder than us. Siakam was like, I'm paraphrasing, basically said, look, we played hard. New York just played harder. And Greg Doyle went, why? And Pascal Siakam was like, huh? What do you mean? What? Why? Why did they play harder than you? You had a chance to end this series and move on to the NBA Finals. Why would they play harder than you? Again, I'm paraphrasing this thing. And Pascal Siakam just said, I just told you they played harder than us. It's basketball. It happens sometimes. And then Doyle comes back again. Well, please explain that to me. Why? And Siakam's looking at him like, dude, don't you know what we're doing here? You ask a question, I answer, we move on. And we're kind of programmed in here. It's kind of like, robo press conference. We don't really want to stop and have all this. But it's an interesting dynamic because that question was legit. Why did they play harder than you? Yes, and the answer is they're desperate. That was the answer if you're Pascal Siakam. Say, dude, they were desperate. They didn't want to go home. They didn't want the series to end. We played hard. We tried to win, but they brought it like big time. That's really the answer. Because Siakam was so stunned that Greg Doyle of the Indy Star kept asking this question, well, why did they play harder than you if you had a chance to win the series? Why would you let them out-effort you and effort you? Why? So it was an interesting back and forth. But Indiana last night, they played hard. New York played desperate. And New York was at home. And all that equals to, if you're Indiana, I'm just saying, you've won in Madison Square Garden. You won the first 2 games of the series. You can win at MSG. But winning game 1 and game 2 at Madison Square Garden, I believe, is a lot different than winning game 7 at Madison Square Garden in this particular situation. If you're Indiana, you want to take the series home and finish it. Game 6 obviously is huge. the Knicks are trying to not have their season get finished. But Indiana, you really want to avoid a Game 7 in New York. Not to say you can't win, you can. But you don't want all that. End it with Pat McAfee jumping up and down and all these other, Indianapolis and Indiana folk sitting in the stands. All your home fan base. End it. You do not want to take yourself to Madison Square Garden. You just don't. Also, last night, NHL, real quick, we have a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final with Edmonton and Florida. Last year, Florida almost gagged a 3-0 lead, but they did win Game 7. So we'll run it back again. I think Edmonton can win. I think they're a little bit more well-rounded than they were last year. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Oilers won the Cup. And I do think Indiana will win Game 6 at home. I just think they've been the better team in the series. And I think that their head coach, Rick Carlisle, has pushed the right buttons. And I just believe that Indiana in Game 6 at home will find a way to scratch out a W and move on to take on Oklahoma City, who I think will beat them. Because Oklahoma City's playing at a stupid high level right now. Especially defensively. Except for that Game 3? Where, again, Oklahoma City, they won the first two. They kind of walked out there in Game 3. We'll just throw our jocks on the court and walk away with another win. And Minnesota came in on their home court and just punched them. But besides that game, Oklahoma City's defense has been phenomenal. So I think no matter who comes out of the East, they lose to Oklahoma City. Just in case you just woke up here on the game, Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out. One last thing, and this happens a lot. You're not going to be shocked or surprised, and that's sad you're not. Lance McCullers Jr. is a pitcher for the Houston Astros. Lance McCullers Jr. had a rough start, his last outing, and started receiving the online death threats that we unfortunately see today. His 5-year-old daughter, according to the story, overheard his wife talking on the phone about it. So then McCullers and the wife had to sit down and talk to the little girl. And whenever we see this, and we see it way too much, it could be some goof who McCullers, screwed up his fantasy team, or some guy who dropped some money on the Astros or McCullers on FanDuel or DraftKings or some daily wagering site, or just some fan who has no life, no spouse, significant other, no job they like. Pretty much they hate themselves in their life, so they take it out on sports because that's where they're, that's where they push everything through sports. It's sad. And the sad part is it only takes one of these goobers to actually follow through. So you have to take all of it serious. And, McCullers is talking about, and in the article, players around the league agree that online abuse has gotten progressively worse in recent years. And I think a lot of it is the online wagering. So that's just in case you just woke up here on the game. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour is coming up next on the halftime show here on the game. Get our Firehouse Sub text of the hour in here. And I'll play a little cut from Greg Sankey, excuse me, to set up the text. And it's Greg Sankey talking, I guess, yesterday. Because remember, Sankey had to flip the coin for the 1 seed in the NCAA and the SEC Women's Basketball Championship. And they also had the coin flip. They were having one at the SEC softball tournament, from what I understand. So here's Sankey, cut 11, Dave, saying, no more coin flips for basketball tiebreakers.
We also approved a revision to tiebreakers in the sport of basketball. I don't have those at my ready, and I think there was some editing done that will reduce and hopefully completely eliminate the need for me to stand in front of a camera and flip a coin ever again during my career as a conference commissioner.
I agree with Greg Sankey. It's just silly. I mean, we talked about it when it happened, and it's silly. And anonymous texter, 2 times this year, the SEC has embarrassed itself with women's sports with a coin flip in basketball for the number 1 seed and the SEC softball tournament championship game getting rained out and calling them champions rather than just playing it the next day. And we said this when all this happened. The reason it goes on is just, look, women's sports has made tremendous strides. I think you and I can agree on that. But it's still far and away looked at as second fiddle compared to men's sports. Could you see the SEC flipping a coin for the number 1 seed in the men's tournament? Could you see just not playing a championship game because of, and I get schedules, I understand, but that's not the point. The point is, if it was a revenue-generating men's sporting event, I guarantee you they'll find a way to play it. And I guarantee you there will be no coin flips for champions or number 1 seeds or any of that stuff. A coin flip will not be happening. And thank you, Texter. You're not wrong. It's embarrassing. Look, it's embarrassing. I don't care what the deal is, what sport, men's, women's. You're flipping coins to do champions or seeding is silly. Have a tie-breaking criteria in place. All right, so 803-446-100. Always appreciate the Firehouse Sub text of the hour. Real quick, we have been Shane Beamer. I want to get to this real quick. Shane Beamer will be on today with Jay and Elijah at 4 o'clock to talk everything Carolina football. That's the head coach, Shane Beamer, on the postgame show again today at 4. 3:15, our buddy Langston Moore will be also jumping in with Jay and Elijah to talk some football with those guys as well. That's today, so full boat for the postgame show. Langston Moore and, of course, head football coach Shane Beamer. That is today. All right, also, we did a little Twitter poll action for what would you like to see regarding the college football playoff. Our Twitter poll gave you choices. You had 4-4-2-2-1 automatic qualifiers and 3 at-large. You had 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at-large. Then you had just the best 16 teams. Make it simple. 70% said just keep it simple. The best 16 teams. We appreciate all the votes, all the views. Thank you a ton for that. Our little poll has spoken easily, saying just take the best 16, don't overthink the room. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. That Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, talking about his thoughts on the college football playoff. We'll get to that next here on the halftime show on the game. Nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, like always, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. A lot of stuff happening, of course, in the world of college football right now. All spring meetings and all these discussions and conversations with conference commissioners and presidents and athletic directors and coaches and all that stuff is now this kind of nothing burger season's become a something burger. Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, supports straight seeding of the college football playoff. And here's Yormark. Let's get cut to, Dave. Basically talking about the support of that type of playoff scenario. Hit it.
Well, I was very much in favor of the seating change we made last week. The entire management committee was. It was the right thing for college football. It simplified things for sure, and I'm excited about it. And I think I speak on behalf of my commissioner colleagues, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, the seating, yes. You should have changed it. It was a no-brainer. Absolutely no-brainer. There's no reason to do what you did last year. Look, last year, when it gets first set up, okay, the 4 conference champions or the top 4 rated conference champions will get, the bye. And you think, okay, what could go wrong there? Well, it did, a lot of it. You had Arizona State win the Big 12. They weren't that highly rated in the college football playoff rankings. You had Boise State. They end up with a bye. And you really didn't think that was going to happen. Because you're sitting there going, okay, well, obviously the Big Ten team is going to be highly rated in the rankings, and so is the SEC. And we're thinking that ACC team should be. And the Big 12, there's not a super team, but somebody's going to break through the pack, right? And it didn't work out that way. So now you just, yes, if you win your conference championship, you get an automatic ticket to the college football playoff dance, but that's it. And then you seed it the way it should have been seeded in the first place. So, yes, now it makes sense. You went through it once and went, oh, we can't have that happen again. That didn't work out the way we were hoping. So that's Brett Yormark discussing that. All right, get back to Greg Sankey a little bit, Dave. I want to grab cut 12. Greg Sankey, the SEC put out a packet to the media, basically talking about the SEC strength of schedule for their teams and how playing in the SEC is much more difficult than playing in any other conference in college football because of how good and how deep the quality of the teams are. And they sent out this packet with, information backing up the claim. And here's cut 12, Greg Sankey discussing that packet of information.
I thought about providing this Monday, and I thought, well, we haven't had any conversation with our members. I owe them, because some of you asked me, what are you going to say to your colleagues? I owe them the information. And so I'm speaking as the Southeastern Conference Commissioner, trying to be responsive to say, here's a set of what we examined. And I think it's fascinating what it shows. And we could produce other charts. You can go do the research. And so what am I expecting? I think it suggests the need for consideration. And I do think there's a need for change. Like, how do you explain some of the decisions that have been made? And I'll go back to Georgia a year and a half ago. Georgia was a 2-time defending national champion. They lost 1 game in our championship game against Alabama. Not a lot of noise about them. Being undefeated was never an expectation for being selected into the 4 teams. That just isn't part of the criteria. Otherwise, like North Dakota State would be in there. That's a little bit extreme, but you understand the point. How do you make those decisions? And it's hard, and we trust the committee to do that, and I respect the people in there. So this isn't a criticism of the people. This is wanting to understand the decisions, and we have to have better clarity on the criteria that inform those decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, I was jumping up and down about it. I'm not the only one about, strength of schedule through last year. And how 1 week it mattered to the committee and 1 week it didn't. Then 1 week head-to-head mattered and 1 week it didn't. And if you're a fan watching it, you scratch your head. It's got to be mind-numbing to these athletic programs where, you're watching this thing every week and you're right there on the cusp of possibly making a playoff, and you're thinking, well, here's my resume, here's our resume, da-da-da-da-da, and you find out that what mattered one week doesn't matter the next week. And you're going to give us some rhyme and reason. It's like whenever you hear like players talk about officiating, refereeing, umpiring, they typically say, just be consistent, right? Be consistent. That's all we care about. And the College Football Playoff Committee is the opposite of consistent. And I do think your strength of schedule should matter. I just do. One team's 10-2 is not this other team's 10-2 if the other team plays a much tougher schedule. It's a higher quality 10-2. I'm sorry. To me, it just is. So something has to be done with that component. And I get, Sankey last year, look, Alabama lost 2 games they had no business losing. So they hurt themselves, right? They did. They should have won. South Carolina had a bad day at home against Ole Miss. That hurt them in this whole thing. Then had LSU and Bama on the ropes and couldn't finish it. And, of course, the LSU game didn't help with some ridiculous officiating. And Ole Miss, they lost to Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky won another game after that against a Power 4 opponent. They also, still trying to hold on to a possible college football playoff berth, got beat by Florida. So Ole Miss also hurt themselves at times. Look, all these teams, you can point finger and say, well, if you would have done this or would have done that, then you wouldn't have been in the position you're in. And it's true. But still, the quality of opponents you're playing in the SEC compared to the quality of opponents you're playing in the ACC, it's night and day. It just is. So looking at SMU with 1 loss compared to, I know Alabama has 3 losses. I get it. And yes, self-inflicted wounds. We just went over it. But their schedule much tougher than SMU's. Much tougher. So how do you equate that? Well, by strength of schedule metric. And you can break it down in 2 parts. I've been saying this is all week. Have the conference strength of schedule and the non-conference strength of schedule for every team. So we know just how the whole thing breaks down. And it should matter in the picking of these teams. Look, I understand, though, people's human nature is look at a 1-loss record and just roll with it, right? Indiana went undefeated. Is there a value to playing and winning every game? Sure. I understand that one. Do I think Indiana was better than, Alabama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina? Nope, I don't. But they went through their league undefeated. Yeah, they didn't have to play some of the top dogs. The toppest of top dogs in the Big Ten they played was, a Michigan team's not as good as they have been the last few years. But at the end of the day, strength of schedule needs to matter. It just does in some way, shape, or form. You can't be, because if it doesn't, then you're going to get worse games. Because if you're South Carolina, Ole Miss, or Alabama, you're going, why would we play tough non-conference games? Because our conference is so tough. And if we're not going to get any credit for our strength of schedule, then why should we schedule anybody difficult? The teams who are scheduling lighter than us in the non-conference especially are getting rewarded when we play a tougher schedule overall and there's nothing in it for us. I understand that. I do understand that thinking. So I know why Greg Sankey sends that out to the media. Get the word out in the media. Here is a package showing what we're doing is more difficult. Totally understand. I do. All right, we are just hanging here doing football, and more football, and lots of football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Talking a ton of college football, obviously, with the spring meetings in Destin. Let's get cut 6 here, Dave. Brian Kelly, the head coach at LSU, and this is interesting. You notice that the ADs, the athletic directors, and the head coaches kind of don't disagree on some important points like the 8-9 game schedule. for an example. AD's like, let's get that ninth game in, the ninth SEC game, get more money from Disney. That's a great idea. And the coaches are going, no. Well, I want to play a ninth game in conference. I already play the toughest conference in America. No. Because my job is to win games, not constantly put my season in peril and put my job in peril. So here's Brian Kelly talking about this difference in philosophy between the SEC coaches and the SEC athletic directors. Cut 6, Dave.
I did learn a lot. Okay. One is that we think as football coaches that we live in a vacuum. In other words, whatever we decide in our room is gospel. Mm-hmm. Right. Then we get into the AD's room and it don't mean nothing. Yeah. Because you really have to look at it from two perspectives, right? The coaches, we're thinking about progress, right? We're thinking about transfer portal and getting it into the right window. We're thinking about NIL and how we can get some clarity and some teeth to that. Yeah. And then we're thinking about revenue sharing and how we can get 85 or 105 on our roster. Then we walk in there and they go, hey, look, we need revenue. We're giving you guys $20 million. We need revenue. You need to play more games. You need to do these things. And so it's a perspective, right, that you gain that when you're sitting in that room, those ADs have to think about the revenue piece as well. And it's not to try to put you in harm's way, but the reality of it is we're the third most watched sports in the country. It's number one is the NFL. Number 2 is the NBA, and number 3 is SEC football. Yeah. I mean, that's major. People want to watch teams from the SEC play, and in particular, play each other. Right. So it starts to put in perspective 8 versus 9 games, right? It starts to put in perspective, hey, do you play-in games? People want to watch the SEC play. And so then we go back into our room and we go, how about we control what we can control?
Yeah, it's different. Absolutely. It's different for what the ADs want and the coaches want. One thing, though, with Brian, if you look at overall, like, per game ratings, college football is number 2 behind the NFL and beats the NBA in regular season games. And some of the bigger college football playoff games will beat the NBA playoff games. So really, college football is number 2 behind the NFL. But anyway. But yeah, I mean, Brian Kelly, again, the coaches have a different perspective, and they should. The athletic directors, their perspective is different as well. Coaches look at the smaller picture, and the ADs look at the bigger picture. That's, again, why a coach also being a GM doesn't really work. The coach is looking at the next game, right? The next practice. And the GMs look at the big picture. Roster building. Who you're going to keep, who you're not going to keep for the next year, things of that nature. Maybe you should play a younger guy to get him ready to play more in the next coming seasons. And the coach is like, well, he's not ready to play. I don't want to put him out there yet because my goal is to win games, not put a youngin' out there who's going to screw up. So everybody's got different agendas, right? That's another part of all this. All right. We are just doing a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, David Ayer hanging out. One of the things that's going on, or could be going on more and more, is the loss of rivalries in college football. Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame, speaks to that, and we'll rack that up for you next here on the halftime show as we do nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour on the game. It is the halftime show as we talk a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, David Ayer, Tyler did the early duty today for Gunner, so he'll be back on Monday. Dave might not be here on Monday. Larkin Post Sunday night. We might not ever see Dave again.
Well, I might just, hide in the luggage compartment of their bus. I know what their bus looks like.
You see the guy taking out all the luggage. They open up the bus where the luggage is. Cat starts pulling Samsonites, and he looks down, and there you are. That would scare the bejesus out of somebody.
I'll protect the guitars in the luggage rack.
Yeah, that's what you say. Go, I'm just a guitar tech. I'm making sure the guitars didn't rattle around during travel. You did a good job there, pal. Nice work. I'll tell Larkin and Poe about you. Put a good word.
It's not Larkin and Poe. The group is Larkin.
No, I know. One's named Larkin, one name's Poe.
No.
I'm just making them do. I don't know. I'm just.
Rebecca and Megan.
They're Larkin or are they Poe? I do these things just because I love to see your face when I do these things about Larkin Poe.
I stay right across from the concert place.
You did what? Yeah, that's right. You did. And you weren't jumping up and down waving at them the last time. Then they had you tased.
That was the first time.
And they had you tased.
Yeah.
Which after knowing you for almost 4 years, I would tase you too.
I saw Rebecca's husband on the street that day too. And he was like going to get something to eat before the.
Now,
and
are we now crossing?
Hey, can I come along? Can I come along?
Can I just carry the food? Can I carry the food, please? Yeah, Dave, I think we're crossing a line of dangerous when you actually know what the husbands look like.
Well, he's kind of famous. He's a guitar player.
Yeah. Is he more famous than Larkin and Poe?
At the moment, I don't think so.
There you go. Just saying. I'm just saying, Dave.
It's just that they're really have exploded in the last couple of years.
Thanks to you.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Everybody that listens to this station knows about Larkin Poe.
Yes, unfortunately they do.
I plan to tell them that at the meet and greet.
Say, thanks to me, your Columbia sales just going crazy.
Absolutely.
All right, we're talking a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Let's get cut one, Dave, here from Marcus Freeman. One of the things that we're seeing in this new world order of college football are, unfortunately, we've seen some rivalries go away, like Oklahoma State. That's just silly. But we have seen some schools keep them alive, like Washington State, Oregon State. At least for now. And here's Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame head coach, talking about how there's the talk of Southern Cal Notre Dame going away as well. And
I think back over my football career, right? Even in high school, I played for Huber Heights Wayne, and we played this team called the Centerville Elks, home of A.J. Hawk and Kirk Herbstreit and Mike Newton, and that was the greatest rivalry there was. Like, that's what we felt like. That was the game. And then as we go in Ohio State and play Michigan, like, huge rivalry. Like, rivalries are such a great part of sports. You think of the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Bulls. Like, that's what makes this thing special. You throw the records out of the window. Right? You throw previous experiences out a window. It's like this game means everything. And so I'm a huge proponent of rivalries. I think the Notre Dame USC rivalry is one of the greatest. I remember before I got here, memories of that game and the plays that would either lead to a championship or the playoffs or whatever the situation was that stick out in my mind. And so I think they're great. And I think we got to find ways to continuously save some of those special college football rivalries. And I know there's some people above me that will make some of those decisions on scheduling, but it would be a disservice to get away from some of those great rivalries. And I'm a huge proponent of Notre Dame and USC continuously playing each other for an endless amount of time. Like, that's a game that as the head coach, you want to play and you want to be a part of. And I hope we can get this rivalry renewed.
I mean, that's one of the things, we talked about this yesterday. When you're making all these changes in college athletics for money, you don't want to start screwing with the fabric of what makes college athletics great and special and fun and a passion. And one of them is getting rid of rivalries. I mean, to me, that's, one of the top ones on the list. And when you start screwing around with that, across the country, that does have an effect on the fabric of the game. And if you're not going to have Southern Cal and Notre Dame, that stinks. You don't have Oklahoma State. That is a crime. That is a sports crime, to be quite honest, not having those schools go at it. And it's all ego and butthurt feelings and pettiness and a lot of ridiculousness. When Texas and Texas A&M went away for a long time. Now it's back. Nebraska, Oklahoma was a huge thing for years and years and years in the Big 8. And then in the Big 12 till Nebraska took off to the Big 10 for money. And they thought Texas was running the Big 12, and they got tired of that, which they weren't wrong. Texas was running the Big 12. So whatever the reasons being for this stuff, a lot of it is, pretty much most of it is money, because you're going to another conference. And the conferences are getting so big, how do you also play your rival? South Carolina, Clemson, there's been no talk or smoke of not continuing this rivalry at all from anybody. And it should always be played. All of these rivalries should be played, man. I just don't understand how you can let ego and hurt feelings and, well, you know, our schedule get in the way of playing a game that your fan base, again, that pays a lot of money to you for the game day experience and the watching of your games, whether it's cable streaming, whatever, they want this game. And you're basically telling them to kick rocks. That's what you're doing. So good stuff from Marcus Freeman about rivalries. All right, we just talked nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Dylan Stewart talking about video games. That's next. Halftime show, lots of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. All right, what you're talking about, we're talking about. We're all yapping about football like we always do in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors in the game. Terry Ford here. Tyler done for the day because he jumped in for Gunner. He'll be back on Monday. I will be taking a week away, Dave. Graduation week. I want to say graduation week for my youngest. First Ford to graduate high school. We are so excited. So I'll be back a week from Tuesday. Did I tell you, Dave, where they're having their prom tomorrow night? On a cruise ship. Mine was at the VFW Hall with bologna sandwiches. And we had to pour we had to pour whiskey in the soda when nobody was looking. A cruise ship, Dave.
That's really nice. I didn't go to my prom.
You didn't?
No.
That's because you were leaving the secret double life and you were out on an assignment somewhere.
Well, all the couples hooked up in like the 5th grade, and they.
What kind of weird?
And they always, they were all taken. And
they all dated from 5th grade till.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were saying they were dating 5th graders. You had me confused and worried, Dave.
No, in the 5th grade.
They got together.
Yeah.
So you didn't hook up in the 5th grade? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I didn't.
And so you had no date for the prom?
Had no date.
There was no other girl that didn't hook up in the 5th grade anywhere in your town?
If they were, she ran and hid and. I mean, there's like this one couple that I think they hooked up in 1st grade. I want to say hook up. I mean,
Yeah, they weren't really hooking up in 1st grade. They got together. They got together in 1st grade.
Yeah.
They started liking each other in 1st grade.
Not only they're still married, but they're like the big social couple in Lawrence.
Uh-huh.
They do the Lawrence debutante ball every year. Every year. And they got together in about 1st grade. Yeah. Yeah, and the debutante ball is at the country. You don't want to know all this.
Oh, I am locked in on the debutante ball.
At the country club where I fished in the 9th hole and all that. But and that was right beside the home for unwed mothers, which I still find so bizarre.
Home for unwed.
They had a home for.
My high school was filled with unwed mothers in Baltimore.
Did they have a home for it? We're going to put you girls over here.
You're unwed and you're a mom. We got a place for you. All that starts because I just talked about my kid having a problem on a cruise ship. And then Dave went down one of his rabbit holes again. We're learning a lot about you, Dave.
It's a big contrast between your kid going on a cruise ship and the home for unwed mothers.
And you being arrested hanging out at the home of unwed mothers. All right, so anyway, Dylan Stewart, as we talk football and proms in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. This is Cut 5, Dave. Dylan Stewart talking about EA Sports and the college football game. Here's what Dylan Stewart is hoping for himself, and also then he talks about a certain mode the game has. Hit it.
What are you hoping for on 26?
26, I'm hoping for a 95.
Is there anything on the video game you're hoping for that's new, something different?
Something new. I'd probably say mascot.
Mascot?
Like the old NCAA.
I've been hearing that.
Basically, if you don't play the game, and honestly, I only know this because I have kids. But yeah, 95, I mean, that's a high level grade, right? As a player. And Dylan Stewart's going to get a high level grade because arguably the best pass rusher in America coming into this season. The other thing was the mascot deal it's called mascot mode. It's where the players compete using the team's mascots instead of the actual players, which honestly sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds kind of cool. So basically, it'll be a bunch of Gamecocks instead of players, which is interesting. I'm just not. Look, again, my kids play. They're gamers. I got friends who are gamers. Just never was my bag. Just wasn't. Every now and then I dabble, but I've just never been a legit hardcore gamer. I used to play against my kids every now and then, and they'd kick the crap out of me. And you know what I do, Dave? Then I put them in trouble, ground them, teach you to beat your dad. These video games. So there's Dylan Stewart talking about the EA Sports college football game and what he's hoping for. And look, Stewart, the Pro Football Focus guys brought this up in one of their podcasts about Dylan Stewart. That again, if you look at his Pro Football Focus scouting grades from last year, this is a guy who, when it comes to rushing the passer, had one of the best grades in America. The one thing that Dylan Stewart has to ramp up and get more consistent at to truly make him one of the best defensive players in America is playing the run game. So Dylan Stewart just has to get better against the run. Obviously, Dylan Stewart tears it up when it comes to rushing the passer. But there's a lot, and it's great. It's not bad. The spotlight on Dylan Stewart and Lenora Sellers is phenomenal. I mean, it gives South Carolina so much, free publicity about the program. Now you just have to go on the field and back it up. That's all. But it's great. I think it's great. I have gotten to the point where I love expectation. That's sneaking through, we just want to sneak up on them, baby. Yeah, okay. But that's everybody now. Everybody's being disrespected and everybody's shocking the world. I like people now who are, now, I'm really good. I want you to expect me to be really good. I love your expectations. Bring it. Let's go. Ugh. I like that. So I love the fact that, Shane's even talking about embracing expectation. Because if you want to be one of the best teams in anything, pro, college, whatever, year in and year out, you have to be able to embrace the expectations. It's what's coming, because eventually people expect you to be really good. No sneaking up behind somebody anymore. Now, you're the big dog everybody's going after, and you got to just got to embrace it. And understand that's who we are and who people think we are, and we've got to go meet expectations or exceed them. It's very simple. Very simple. All right, we talk a lot of football here in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. Steve Sarkisian was talking at SEC spring meetings in Destin. And, you look last year at the SEC and nobody was undefeated, obviously. And, it's just very difficult to go undefeated in the SEC. Almost near impossible, to be honest. And here's Steve Sarkisian discussing that. He says he doesn't think you'll ever see an undefeated, forget SEC, national champion with the way this thing is going and how you're going to have different levels of playoffs and harder schedules and things of that nature and more teams involved. Maybe the undefeated national champion, those days are done. Let's get cut 4 with Sark, Dave.
And so the idea, I think we've all got to wrap our brain around, I don't know if we'll ever see an undefeated national champion again. If we do, that's a really good team because it's just so difficult. And it's not so, it's difficult, yes, because of the quality of the opponents you play, but it's so difficult to stay healthy that long. You're going to have teams in years like we had last year where you lose your starting quarterback. And how do you respond to your quarterback being down? Or you lose both your left tackles. That happened to us last year. Or your left tackle, then your right tackle. And do you have the depth to endure? And so I think you're going to see teams more and more now, 2 losses, 3 losses, maybe even 4 losses that get in. Not very different than the NCAA baseball tournament of what that looks like. I looked at Vanderbilt, I think, as the number 1 seed. There was a point in the season they were 11-10, and now they're the number 1 seed in the baseball tournament. And so I don't know, and we kind of saw it in basketball this year with Florida and them winning the national. But this idea of somebody's going to go 16-0 in college football, man, put a statue up somewhere of that team, because I just don't know if that's going to happen again.
I think I agree with Sark that it's just going to be tough. It's tough for a team to go undefeated. Because we're so used to it in college football, teams are undefeated or have 1 loss. They're the teams who win the national championship. And we're going to see teams with 2-3 losses regularly win the whole spiel. Just where this whole thing's going. And, it looks weird to go, wow, national champion with 3 losses? That's strange. I mean, last year Ohio State won the whole thing with 2. But we could see 3, maybe even a 4-loss national champion. Who knows before it's all said and done. But that's where we're going. Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, we played you a cut from him earlier discussing how he was all for reseeding the college football playoff. Obviously, Yormark, not a huge fan of the Big Ten and the SEC getting 4 automatic qualifiers, saying we believe that from our ADs and coaches, we should want to earn it on the field. And sure, you say that because you're not in line for possible 4 automatic qualifiers. If you told Brett Yormark, hey, we changed the whole spiel, man, now it's going to be you, the SEC, and the Big Ten get 4 automatic qualifiers. Yormark would go, well, on second thought, not a bad idea. I think I like that. Because you're left out of the party. You might get 2 with this 4-4, 2-2-1, 1 3/4, 3/3, whatever. You're kind of not getting as many as the SEC and the Big Ten, so sure, you're not down with it. And we did our little Twitter poll, and our people voting on the poll weren't down with that automatic qualifier thing. They said take the best 16 teams. Now, I think it's going to meet in the middle with that 5-11. You have the 5 automatic qualifiers who win their conferences, the 4 AQs, the 4 power leagues, and then you have the highest rated group of 5 team. And then you'll have 11 at large. So you'll have 5 automatics and 11 at large. And I feel that's where it'll end up. Because this thing's going to go to 16, obviously. I also think the SEC eventually will go to 9 games because of the money. ESPN's ponying in dough. SEC eventually will go, all right, we'll do it. Jeez. I think that's where it's going to end up. So anything that's going to make the most money is going to happen. I think that's the best way to describe it, right? That's just the one line you can say to everything. Well, if it's going to make them money, they'll do it, because that's where we're at. All right, Firehouse Sub text the hour next, 803-404-6100 on the halftime show. David Ayer punching the buttons. Didn't go to his prom. Still kind of hurting over it. Terry Ford, we're here till 3 on the game. Halftime show. Oh, we're talking a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Get our Firehouse Sub text the hour here in a minute. Another cut that sets up a text. We were talking about a couple things that Greg Sankey has been discussing, or was discussing yesterday. One of them was about court storming, or stadium, court storming, storming the field, whatever. And here's cut 10, Dave, from Greg Sankey, talking about this whole court/field storming issue in the SEC and the fines.
We altered the access to competition area policy to establish a flat fee of $500,000 for each violation rather than an escalating per incident amount. You may recall in basketball last year, we also had flexibility if the visiting team could exit the court and the officials, and then the celebration began. We did not impose fines if there was a clean court while that exit took place. Part of the change gives me the authority, if you have those non-incursion moments while the visiting team is present and the officials are present, if it doesn't happen but happens later, that we wouldn't be imposing a fine.
Got all that? Yeah, my head hurts too. Look, I've always been, my first thought is just a fan, because that's really what I've always been, is the field storming, the court storming. Fans are going on the field or the court. Obviously there's a big win. You're enjoying yourself. You're having fun. You're celebrating. Maybe you've had way too much liquid celebration before the celebration, whatever it is. And you go on the field and enjoy the moment. I remember when South Carolina beat Tennessee a few years ago at Willie B, that night game where Spencer Rattler was unbelievable. And the fans stormed the field. And I remember in the post game, just the players, most of them were like, that was like insane. I loved it. It was great. It was crazy. I'll never forget it as long as I live. So I just think there's something from a fan / player aspect of it that I believe is cool. Now, there are some players probably are scared the living hell out of me. But I just think that fans storming the field in a special moment when your favorite team wins a gigantic game against a really, really good team, yeah, it's cool. It is. But I also understand the liability. I also understand there could be injury. Things could happen. Bad things could happen. And then here come the lawyers. So from a practical standpoint of business, or if you're running a university and you know the liability that comes if, God forbid, a fan runs on the field and something bad happens to that fan, the university is going to get sued. There'll be a lot of people who get sued. One will be the university. So I understand that part of it, too. It's very difficult because the fan in me loves it. I'll be honest with you, I was in the press box, and we got video of it, and it was just a great moment. But the one thing that's happened, I want to get to this text, Firehouse Sub text the hour, because this is interesting. Let the fans storm. Stop wimpifying fun things. But that being said, the constant field storming last year was rampantly idiotic and is the reason for this rule. So I do think there is a kind of like a line. Like you beat a number one team in the country or a top 5 team in the country. It's a gigantic win for your program, and let's say you're unranked. Storm it up, baby. Go get them. That's a big win. Or let's say if you're the 15th ranked team in the country, you just beat the number one team in the country. It was a gigantic game for your program. Maybe put you in first place. I don't know. Have at it. But if you're number 8 and you beat number 7 and you're storming the field, why, I guess? Or don't you want to become the program that when you get beat by a team, they storm the field because you're so good? Don't you want to become the program that people want to storm the field after they beat you? And don't you want to get to the point where the field storming for you is more rare because you're that good? You expect to win big games against high-level competition? Just saying. But I have a tough time with it because I understand from the fan side and how cool I do think it is at times. I get the business and liability side of the whole thing. I do. I understand. Halftime show. What's trending at 2 next on the game? Oh, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. As we kick till 3, do not forget 4 o'clock today, South Carolina football coach Shane Beamer will be hanging out with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show. 3:15, Langston Moore, our buddy Langston, will also be on the postgame show as well. Again, all that gets rolling at 3 today on the game. 2:15, Scott Hamilton, columnist from the Post and Courier, will yip some sports with us. Yeah, that's coming up at 2:15 with Scott. we look at what's trending at 2. And we've been talking a lot of football about the NCAA. Let's switch over to college basketball. Get to cut 8 here, Dave. NCAA President Charlie Baker spoke here, I believe, yesterday or recently. And Baker was talking about why expanding the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament next year, is a good thing. That's cut 8, Dave.
It's a way to get some of the teams into the tournament who would, as at-large teams, would get in. But given the fact that we really believe in the AQ process and the opportunities that creates for everybody to have a stake in the tournaments on the men's and women's side, we definitely leave some teams out that, probably belong there.
Oh, let me translate that. We want to expand the tournament for 2 reasons. A, we want to make more money. And B, there are a lot more of these power conference teams that are kind of mediocre that we want to get in the dance so their conferences can make more money. I think I did that okay. Because the teams they're talking about that are going to get in are just those teams in the middle of the power conference that got knocked on the wrong side of the bubble. Like a Wake Forest in the ACC. Good team. Went 13-7 in league, 21-11 overall. They didn't get in. It's a good team. They just didn't make the field. Or you go even deeper to like a team like Stanford went 11-9 in the ACC. But this could get them, open the door to get their opportunity. In the Big 12, you look at that as well. Remember, West Virginia was on the wrong side. They were 10-10 in league, 19-13, lost their best player to injury. TCU 9-11 in league, 16-16. Those are the kind of teams that will get more chances to get in certain years. They want to take that mediocre team from the Power League and put them in the NCAA tournament. Now, Wake Forest, okay, I get that. You had a good year in conference. You won 20 games. There were people who, looked at Wake Forest like, that was a resume that might be able to get in. But they didn't. It didn't happen. So you sit and say, all right, that one, all right, but the other ones, some of these others with basic, mediocre records, like 500 in their league. Okay, if they get in, big deal. They don't get in, big deal. The only person who wants to see those teams in are the conferences who can make money off them getting in and that team's fan base. Nobody's jumping up and down going, oh, man. Oh, Stanford didn't get in the NCAA tournament. I'm not watching. No. These teams that are, when a tournament gets to grow to this size, if you don't make it, it's a you deal. It's a you problem. What games did you lose you should have won? Or what games, that, could have helped your resume that you got punked? What did you do to put yourself on the wrong side of the bubble? I got no pity for those teams. I just don't. I've said this before. If you want to expand the tournament, and you're going to throw some of those in, fine. But don't forget, these teams who crushed it in their leagues, these mid-majors or lower mid-majors, who end up not getting in because they didn't win the conference tournament. I'll just take one. I'm not saying this because it's right where I lived in Maryland. Towson University went 16-2 in league, 22-11 overall, got upset in the CAA tournament. So you have one bad night, and your entire resume goes, I don't think that's fair. So put some of those teams in the tournament as well. If you're going to put a mix of those type of teams and these mediocre power conference teams, okay, that's fine. But really, it's being done mostly for the power conference, mediocre, just kind of the jiggly middle to be able to get in the NCAA tournament. So these conferences can get more money for having more teams in the dance. That's all. And it's always about money. You're expanding the tournament because you can make more money. Let's just call it what it is. Very simple, very easy. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, David Hare hanging out here on the game. All right, Xavier Legette This is great. Xavier Legette went to his first NHL game. And we've got to hear Xavier Legette talking about his first NHL game. It's cut 9, Dave.
Hey, I'm on the glass. Hey, you ain't tell me the hockey pucks come flying over here, man. Oh, boy, these folks going crazy, boy. Hey, yeah, they doing that thing. Boy, he got down there clothesline, boy, right in front of me, boy. What's my boy name from OKC with the Braves? Shea Alexander. He right there. He tough. He's right. Oh, no. Hell no. Oh, boy. God, I got scared of hell, boy. But I'm scared of hell, boy. Yeah. I ain't know it get like this, boy. My back. Damn. Come on, Kynes. Come on, Mike. Come on.
Just a little defense, Kynes. Come on now.
Come on, now.
Just a little defense.
A little defense. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna be back to one evil.
Xavier's become a thing, man. He has become like a star off the field. It's hilarious. It really is funny. Fantastic. It just is. I love it, but man, these pucks, pretty close. This glass. Oh, it's too good. Anyway, Xavier Legette at his first hockey game. I love the fact that he's like become such a phenomenon in the Charlotte area. They love him. And he's getting a ton of stuff off the field. So good for him. Good for him. All right, college baseball. NCAA tournaments rolling. North Carolina leading Holy Cross 4-0. That game's bottom of the 7th. East Carolina smacking Florida 10-2. That game's top of the 6th. NC State and Stetson delayed. Louisville top of the 1st, scoreless with East Tennessee State. Texas, number 2 seed, and Houston Christian scoreless. That game's just starting. Bottom 2, Cincinnati all over Wake Forest 8-2. And Georgia and Binghamton also delayed, so that's the early goings in the NCAA tournament. Get you caught up there on what's happening. NBA last night, in case you missed it, the Knicks, they stay alive. They take out the Indiana Pacers. I just think, look, the Pacers giving effort, sure, but the Knicks were desperate. And when you're desperate, you always give a lot more effort when you're trying to save yourself from whatever it is. And the Knicks did. They gave a ton of effort. Place was electric at the Madison Square Garden. Indiana just, again, there's different levels of trying hard, right? There just are. There's trying hard, and there's trying hard. Indiana was trying hard. The Knicks were trying hard. And New York lives for another game. They'll now go back to Indiana. I think the Pacers win Game 6 in Indy, and they will move on to get beat by the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's kind of the way I feel it's going to go. But Indiana, you can't screw around because, you leave the Knicks' life, all of a sudden you're playing Game 7 in the Garden, and you could be in trouble. You really could be. You need to end this thing in Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton was like a ghost last night. You put him on a milk carton. I think he scored 8 points, had 6 assists. Just, and the Knicks were doing a lot of physical stuff to Halliburton. There's a lot of grabbing, a lot of bumping and pushing of Halliburton. One time, Mikal Bridges of the Knicks was like holding Halliburton. It looked like me slow dancing in middle school. Lizzie Thurton, Dave. Lizzie Thurton. 8th grade. Just saying. Was the best slow dance of young Terry Ford's life at that time. That's what it looked like with Bridges and Halliburton, because Bridges was, they were grabbing, hugging Halliburton, and really the officials weren't calling it. And if the officials aren't going to call it, you keep doing it. But Indiana just didn't bring the same energy as the Knicks did last night. New York, to their credit, they stay alive and they move forward. And by the way, speaking of playing in Indiana, Game 4, Pat McAfee got up and did a little bit of WWE type of stuff, pointing out all the New York celebrities in the crowd in Indianapolis and then saying, hopefully we send them the bleep back to New York, unhappy or whatever McAfee said. John Cougar Mellencamp, who has lived in Indiana his whole life, was not very happy with the whole Pat McAfee WWE type SmackDown talk. And basically, John Cougar Mellencamp on social media put out a post saying he wasn't happy with that whole thing. And we're Hoosiers. We treat people nice from out of town. And we're good people. We don't act like that. I want to apologize on behalf of everybody in the state of Indiana. Because, again, McAfee got the crowd all geeked up, and they were booing the Ben Stillers and people like that who came in from New York to watch the game. And John Cougar Mellencamp, look, I mean, Mellencamp's response is so Midwest. It just is. I lived in the Midwest for 2 years. They're like the nicest people ever. Very laid back. They're friendly. They do stuff for you. Midwesterners are great. You can milk their cow with them. I never milked a cow. Got offered. Guy was on my softball team, and he owned a farm, and he was like, we were kidding about something. He goes, I was kidding about farm, being on the farm or something. He goes, hey, what, Terry? Tomorrow morning, why don't you come on out about 6:30 and you can milk cows with me? I said, I'm good, Ben. He goes, no, man, why don't you go? He goes, you have an open invitation anytime you want to come to the farm and milk cows. I mean, nope.
That's a real friend, right?
That's a buddy, wasn't it, Dave? Hey, what'd you do today? I went and milked cows with Ben.
Well, then y'all could have gone cow tipping that night.
I'll tell you this. I didn't experience that in Wisconsin, but that was a thing in Pennsylvania because people understand Pennsylvania has some of the most farmland in the country. It's a ton of farmland in PA because PA is gigantic. And the middle of it is lots of farms. There are a lot of stories of cow tipping going on in PA. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a cow, right? I'm minding my own business. I'm just chilling. I'm not bothering anybody. And all of a sudden, I got these goofs trying to tip me over. What are we doing here?
Why wouldn't you want to go walking through a cow pasture at night? I mean, you can't. You're going to step in something.
Yeah. You know what I would hope? That they think it's a cow, but it's a bull by accident.
Oh, man.
That would be good. But you're right. Your shoes, you can't wear those shoes when you get out of the cow pasture.
That's right.
At night, it's over. It's over. All right, I do believe, though, the Pacers will they will get it together, and they'll get back to playing how Indiana has in this series, and they'll finish the Knicks season in Game 6. Up next on What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Tradition, Scott Hamilton, columnist of the Post and Courier. We will go into Scott Hamilton's head, which is always a dangerous, scary, and creepy place. That's next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We'll let him out of here since he had to work really early. David Ayers here punching the buttons, and like always on a Friday at 2:15, because we got to fill air somehow. Scott Hamilton, columnist, Post and Courier. What are you doing, Bob?
What does it matter? I'm just filling time, man. Just killing time, helping you do your job, doing the heavy lifting, because I'm that guy. You call me when you need some support, and I'm like, okay, Terry, I'll bail you out. Here I am. Poor Tyler Head.
Sure, Ford. What the hell? I'll give you some gold for 10 minutes. Make the highlight of your week. Why not?
It's okay, and you get all the glory, and it's all right, though. I'm just here to, better mankind.
Here to prop you up. Hey, so we've had a lot of talk this week again. Before we get to this, all right, so you've been covering sports since like the early 1900s. Do you remember when these spring meetings were just like a whatever and very few people cared? And if you were a media member and you had to cover it, you'd go throw a couple of stories out and then just kind of hit the beach? Do you remember those days?
I do remember those days. And it's like that to a certain degree at most conferences, but not at the SEC. God bless them. And I think it's the product. I'm not going to hate them all. I'm not going to hate them for it. I'm not. I think it's very forward thinking. I think it's how the SEC has managed to elevate its brand by making everything an event. And I'm cool with it. The Big Ten doesn't do it. I find it odd. I mean, how seriously can we take it as something that is embedded into the culture of the folks from, well, it used to be the Midwest. Now I guess it's from New Jersey to Inglewood. But how seriously can we take it when the spring meetings aren't even a big deal? It's a big deal in the South, man. I'm for it.
Yeah, I think it's been such a thing, especially this week, and last year was a thing too. And we just see, because of all the stuff going on in the world of college football, and Greg Sankey so up, front and center and all these things. I'm just like, I'm here. I get to hear stories from like these media members go, man, I remember this was just like, you go down there, you hang out, you knock down some like margaritas, throw in a couple of stories, get a tan. He goes, now we're working. We're actually busting our hump.
Well, think about this, Terry. If they didn't make such an event, we wouldn't have gotten the gold, the just wonderful gift they gave us a couple of years ago when we had Jimbo and Saban.
How great was that?
Remember the big stare? That was wonderful, man. I really miss that. That was. I mean, I miss Jimbo just for the fact that he was such a good pincushion. We don't really have a pincushion in the SEC now. I mean, who would be the pincushion now, Terry Ford? Who would it be? Mark Stoops? No, he doesn't talk enough.
Yeah, Stoops.
Jimbo was just unlikable.
Right. The guy that's becoming that, I think to some people, is Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri.
Maybe, but he doesn't pretend like he's had it so hard and he wasn't born. I mean, Jimbo.
Oh yeah, Jimbo was next level. Yeah, Jimbo was next level.
Oh God. He's Mount Rushmore of insufferableness. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody comparable to Jimbo, and I'm at a loss. I really am at a loss. Drinkwitz, I kind of like Drink, man. I really have no beef with him. I mean, especially the way he trolled Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was getting there. He might have already been there, actually. But I like Drink. That's the thing. All the coaches in the SEC, I have no beef with. Now, Brian Kelly's been humbled. When he rolled into Baton Rouge, and remember he looked like a pole stripper having a seizure in that one video when he's with the recruit. Remember he was dancing in those videos, and he had the fake accent. But I think he's come correct. I think he's back around now to saying, "Oh God, I better win some football games, so they're going to run me out of here like they did everybody else." I don't mind. I love Kiffin. Kiffin owns it. Kiffin's Eddie Haskell. I love Kiffin. I don't know who it would be, man. Heupel's cool. Purdy does his thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see where you're going. I mean, look, Jimbo was a whole other level. Yeah, Brian Kelly came in with the fake Cajun accent, and he was dancing in videos with recruits, and it was kind of creepy and weird. But the thing with Kelly is, I think he's so universally not liked just because people just don't like him. Like he's at that level of I don't like Brian Kelly. Why? I don't like his face, but he doesn't. He's not Jimbo level. He's just not because he's not that interesting. I mean, Brian Kelly really is not that interesting when it comes to his personality. Am I wrong?
He's pretty bland. No, he's straight up football coach. My deal with Brian Kelly, and I don't know how we went down this rabbit hole.
I blame you.
My deal with Brian Kelly, I blame me too. Yeah, you need me to fill time. We're just tossing stuff out there, see what sticks. My deal with Brian Kelly was how he left Notre Dame. I mean, he sent a text message in the morning, said team meeting basically in 10 minutes. He goes, he speaks literally for, I think, 3 minutes. Somebody timed him, and then he's out the door. That was it. And that was a Notre Dame team that still had a very, very, very legitimate shot of making the college football playoff. And that was a 14 playoff, Terry Ford.
Yep.
I didn't like the optics of that.
No.
I didn't like the optics of that, and I'm still sideways with it.
I'm with you 100%. Scott Hamilton with us, columnist, Post and Courier, yapping here on the Halftime Show. Okay, let me get your thoughts. If you are the grand poobah of college football, what's your playoff? What is your playoff system?
I think it's the Lane Kiffin. 16 at-larges.
No automatic for winning your conference.
Best is the best, bro. Best is the best.
Now you're going to let that...
I'm down with it.
So, and if the group of five has one of the best 16, they're in. If they not, they don't. Easy.
Yeah, be better. Be better. Now, how you determine that 16 teams, that's against Nicey. I mean, we hated the BCS, but it did a pretty good job. And up until Alabama got in over Florida State, and we can argue that if you want, the selection committee did a pretty good job. And I don't blame the selection committee for what happened last year. I blame the people who voted that format where the top four highest-ranked conference champions got first-round buys. That was the only bummer of that playoff. But if you reposition last year's playoff by getting rid of those automatic, champion buys, blah, 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 man, it would have been so good. It would have been so wonderful. And you probably would have had a different field, too. I mean, if the Gamecocks would have gotten in, I would have loved to see what they would have done. Maybe not beat Ohio State. Ohio State was destined to win a national title. But there's no other team in America that wanted to play South Carolina the second week of December after the way they looked to close out the regular season.
They were on a massive heater, no doubt. All right, real quick before I let you go, what's the one system you don't want to see them put in of all these different rumors?
Look, I get it, and it was in my column earlier this week. I'm cool with the SEC and the Big Ten flexing because I truly believe they earned the right to flex. They put in the money. They put in the effort. They had foresight years ago to build their brands to become powerful. But I don't really care for the four, what is it, 4 plus 4 plus whatever. I don't like the automatic. Well, I mean, giving it to the conference champion is one thing, but giving it to 3 other teams is another. And Terry, real quick, it all comes down to this. They want to not only protect the sanctity of conference championship weekend, but to expand it even to a bigger cash grab by having those play-in games. Where
Absolutely.
One plays 4, or 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5 for 2 other spots.
Yep.
So I don't like it.
It's all about the bags, my friend. Scott Hamilton, columnist, Post and Courier. We'll bug you again next week. No, I won't. I won't be here, so Tyler will bug you next week.
Yeah, that's right. Tyler and I, we're rolling for a full hour, right?
Full hour next week. That's right. Absolutely.
I'll pack
I mean, Tyler.
I'll make sandwiches.
I'll be honest with you, Tyler didn't want to do it, but I talked him into it.
Well, those naked pictures.
There's some there's something I can't unsee again in my life. Thanks, Scott Hamilton, columnist, Post and Courier. Always good hanging out with you, bud. I appreciate you, man.
You the man, Terry.
All right, we'll see you, boss. The greatest day in the history of the world is May 30th. We'll tell you why next here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, David Dare on the Game. Greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by Purple Wave Auctions. Today's May 30th. Old school, 1952. At age 22, Troy Ruttman becomes the youngest driver to win the Indy 500. So, never heard of him, Tara. And he still is the youngest driver ever to win the Indy 500. He won it very early in his racing career. He had raced sprint cars in the late 40s. Ran 51 midget races, winning 16, was in the top 3 28 times. Over half the races he was in, he finished in the top 3 in sprint cars and the midgets. Ruttman then moved on, finished second in the 1952 National Championship in championship car racing. Same year in 52, he won the Indy 500. An injury during a sprint car crash in August of 1952 sidelined Ruttman for 1.5 racing seasons. Ruttman came back in 1954, greatly reduced schedule, but he was never the same driver, according to what I'm reading. Rumor was he had not been very diligent during his recovery. He gained weight, did a lot of partying. One competitor remarked that Ruttman was a case of too much, too young. Ruttman, he kept racing, had a stock car career, World Drivers' Championship career, retired at age 34, just was never the same driver after that crash. He then ran a motorcycle snowmobile dealership out of Plymouth, Michigan, passed away in 1997. So that's what happened to the youngest driver ever to win the Indy 500, Troy Ruttman. This was an interesting race in 1955. Good and tragic. Bob Swikert, an Indianapolis native, wins the Indy 500, which obviously is a gigantic thing, especially in the mid-50s. Bill Vukovich, who was seeking his third consecutive Indy 500 victory, unfortunately was killed in a 4-car crash on the 56th lap of that same race. So the great thing of a local guy winning the 500 and the tragedy of one of the best drivers in IndyCar dying on the same day in a crash. 1971, Willie Mays hits his 638th home run. That set the National League record with 1,950 runs scored. A lot of people will tell you that watch Willie Mays play that he is the greatest baseball player ever. Could hit for power, hit for average. Defensively was phenomenal. Could run the bases, steal bags. They said just Willie Mays was the best all-around player they'd ever seen. That's what I hear from a lot of old heads. 1985, the Edmonton Oilers won the Stanley Cup for the second straight year, taking out the Philadelphia Flyers in 5 games, Wayne Gretzky and the crew. 1986, some dude named Barry Bonds made his debut for the Pittsburgh Pirates, back when he had a smaller head, the skinny Barry Bonds. 1987, when Mike Tyson was still the baddest man alive, Tyson beat Pinklin Thomas by TKO in the 6th round in Vegas to retain the heavyweight championship. And with Tyson, it's just a shame, man. It's great that he has kind of rehabilitated himself as life has gone on, but it's just a shame. If his mentor, trainer, really like father figure in Custom Auto didn't die, Tyson could have gone down as one of the greatest heavyweights ever. Because that period of time with Custom Auto was when Tyson was not just a slugger and a puncher, but also a boxer. But then D'Amato died. Unfortunately, Don King got his grimy paws into Mike Tyson's career, and things just went sideways. To Tyson's credit, though, he's bounced back. Look, I will never not laugh in the Mike Tyson scenes in the first Hangover. Phenomenal. Tyson's he's done like a show where he does stand up. It's like a one-man show. He's chilled and mellowed. And I give Mike Tyson a lot of credit for all that. But it is just a shame that if Custom Auto could have lived another 10 years and been able to train Mike Tyson in the fashion in which he was training him and mentoring him, Tyson could have gone down as one of the greats. I will never forget the fear in a dude's eyes when he's standing in the ring with Tyson, the bell's about to ring, when Tyson was truly the baddest man alive. That Michael Spinks fight, when Michael Spinks was just a beefed up light heavyweight or cruiserweight, and Spinks is in the ring with Tyson, and Tyson makes Clubber Lang, look like Urkel, and Tyson looks like he cannot wait to destroy Mike Tyson. And Michael Spinks, you can almost smell the fear and other things coming off of Michael Spinks before that fight. Tyson was something else for a period of time. It's just a shame. Greatest day in the history of the world, May 30th. In lacrosse, Johns Hopkins in 2005 won their first championship at 18 years, beating Duke to complete an undefeated season. Hopkins was the gold standard for lacrosse forever. Not anymore, but they used to be the top program in the country. 2011, Jim Tressel, who guided Ohio State to its first national title in 34 years, resigns amid NCAA violations. I cannot say this with a straight face today. Resigns amid NCAA violations from a tattoo parlor scandal. Tattoo gate, tat gate, ink gate, ridiculousness gate. But that's the world we lived in. And now we live in a total 180 world. And we look back on that as how dumb was that whole situation. It did. Jim Tressel's career was over. It was done, finished history. Terrell Pryor's career was over at Ohio State. It just was stupid over tattoos. But that, of course, led the way after Luke Fickell got thrown under the bus. They led to Urban Meyer and more winning at Ohio State. This day, 2012, Roger Federer breaks Jimmy Connor's open-era record of 233 Grand Slam match wins by beating Adrian Ungor of Romania. Federer, who owned a record 16 major championships at the time, 234 and 35 rather, 234 and 35 in the slams. Connors was 233 and 49. Unreal. Just unreal. Federer, the Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic era of tennis, where you have three of these iconic Hall of Fame players all at the same time. Just you'll probably never see it again. But here the thing is, none of them are Americans, so we don't care. Not a criticism, just the truth. If one of those guys were American, let's say they all were American, we'd be all over it. But tennis is not what it used to be, and the fact none of those guys are from the USA, so we go, I'm bored. Let's go play pickleball. I will do our handoff with our buddy Elijah Campbell. It's sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. Don't forget today at 4, by the way, Shane Beamer, South Carolina football coach, hanging out with Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell on the postgame show. That is at 4. Also, our pal Langston Moore, former Gamecock, will be on at 3:15 as well to yap some football. But up next, we'll get the handoff with Elijah. And also our Firehouse Sub text the hour, 803-404-6100. Halftime show, Terry Ford, David Dare, wrapping this sucker up for the week. Next on the game. we'll get our Firehouse Subtext the hour here in just a second. Also, Elijah Campbell playing the role of Jay Phillips because we don't want Jay anywhere near us, to be quite honest.
No, I don't want what he's got.
No. We stopped him right by the door.
You sprayed him.
Yeah, I did.
Pepper sprayed him at the door.
Pepper. Once he was down, we covered him in hand sanitizer, so he wouldn't whatever he's got going on.
It sounds like this.
We did yesterday. How you doing, Jay? How you feeling?
I'm doing just fine. I'm doing all right, Terry. Thanks for asking.
It's like, wow.
You got really deep into the diaphragm on that one.
I can't do that again. I wish my voice would be half that deep in real life. I'm a 12-year-old gargling razor blades. I would love to have that voice.
I'd love to walk around with this kind of voice all the time. 107.5 The Game.
Just like this.
The Game Network.
God, that'd be interesting. That would be interesting. All right, so before we get to the Fire Subtext the hour, you got the old ball coach today at 4 o'clock.
We do. Shane Beamer's going to join us. He's had some fun in Destin this past week. The SEC spring meetings.
You know the funny thing?
Not a bad place to pick, to converge. And
man, I'm going to tell you what. Destin, I have not been to Destin, but everybody I know loves Destin.
Every year in December when I was in high school, we played a basketball tournament down there, and it was the most fun day after Christmas. Team heads down there in a hotel at the Hilton, which I believe is close to where the spring meetings are. If not, it might actually be at that hotel. But we'd stay there and go win a tournament and come back home before New Year's. It was fun.
So you'd win the tournament?
We won it once. We did win it once. Won the whole thing once.
Destin, I hear Destin's really sweet, though. It's a cool town.
Oh, and that beach is gorgeous.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I hear the beach is just
the sand is amazing. I'm a sucker for good sand.
I think these are the hard-hitting questions we have to bring to Shane Beamer. You like the sand? What do you think of the sand on that beach in Destin? Out of all the beaches you've been to, Shane, is Destin the nicest? Rate your beaches, Shane.
It'd be up there.
Shane, you got a tan? How's that tan, Shane? Scale of 1 to 10.
What was the best beach beer you had this week? This week.
So, yeah, they're at Destin. You didn't hear you heard a lot of Brian, and Shane was talked to by the media, but you heard a lot of Brian. You heard some Brian Kelly, a lot of Lane Kiffin, like always. You got a little Kalen DeBoer in there. You got Kirby. You didn't get a lot of Shane being thrown out everywhere. So we'll get what he thinks today with you guys.
We'll get to know for sure.
And
we'll clip that up.
Look, we did our little Twitter poll, and far and away, the best 16 teams won the Twitter poll. It wasn't even close. What, about 70%, wasn't it?
Yeah, close to it. I think it might have been 68 or 69%, I think, last time I saw. But it was a pretty overwhelming majority.
Look, for me, it's either the 5+11 or the straight 16. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I prefer the 5+11 because I like the emphasis on conference
I was
championship
going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
There is an old school part of my soul that thinks winning your conference championship should have a value.
Yes.
Now, again, you don't get seeded anywhere, but you get in automatically.
But that punches your ticket. Yeah.
Yes.
It's the same excitement we get for any conference tournament in any other sport. Basketball, baseball, softball. You win your conference tournament, you are into the postseason.
And again, I just feel like going through that gauntlet, you deserve your automatic spot. I just do. But so I'm a 5'11" guy. If they won straight 16, I wouldn't go, oh my gosh, that's better than 4-4, 2-2-1.
I appreciate
2 and a third,
the simplicity.
3 and a second.
Yeah, I appreciate the simplicity of just the 16 best teams. It's pretty straightforward.
But I'm with you. If I have my one choice, it's 5'11".
Certainly.
That's why I'm
anything but the 4 auto bids for 2 conferences, other 2 conferences in your Power 4 only getting 2. I think that's kind of insulting to the sport.
Well, I just don't like the idea you're automatically set with 4 whether you deserve it or not.
Right. It waters down the accomplishment, too. The SEC's too good to need that.
Do you know the only good thing about it for me, if you got to say, okay, find a good in that, because I don't like it and don't want them to use it, is it takes the committees out.
Yes.
Because the one thing I think I hate more than 4-4-2-2, 4-4-4, 1-2-2 is the College Football Playoff Committee.
Oh, and that does at least eliminate the possibility for human error in ranking the teams. But then here's the other thing, too. You would eliminate one problem, but you would create a whole other one. Because imagine if a 3 seed in the SEC or the number 3 ranked team in the SEC is 10-2, right? They lost the 2 out of 3. They lost the chance to play in the SEC title game because of a tiebreaker. Well, they have a bad day, throw like a pick 6, miss like 3 field goals, and get upset by whoever the 6 is. We really going to keep that number 3 team out?
They're out.
We really going to keep
Think
them
about
out.
that for a minute.
And then
that could happen.
But then the SEC is going to, and Big Ten are going to be like, well, even if you lose that game, you should still be eligible for the at-large.
Oh, you know
get
that's
out of here with that.
Right.
Get out of here with that.
Once you make it a play-in scenario, it's a play-in, it's a play-in, play-out scenario.
Yep.
Real quick, fire us up, text the hour, talking about NIL. They'll have to start somehow pulling money from the NIL budget, which inhibits the ability to get players and have success on the field or court. That's what makes it matter to fans. Look, we had a big thing in the first hour about NIL, and it's just it will never turn around. This is where we're going. This is the world we live in. The courts told you that, and that's just the way it goes from here.
Got to pay your employees.
So, Shane Beamer, 4 o'clock, Langston Moore, 3:15.
Oh,
Stay away from Sickly J. Talk to you later. Nice job, Dave.